Hello and welcome to this special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. I'm Kevin Ochsner. Thanks for joining us. We're coming to you live tonight to update you on the state of the U.S. beef cattle industry and to show you how the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is working on behalf of its members. So far, 2013 has been one for the record books. The cattle industry has been impacted by damaging floods and devastating blizzards. And on the positive side, we're seeing some record cattle prices. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, policy issues such as the Farm Bill, immigration reform, and more have been stalled. Tonight, we've assembled a panel of experts who are ready to take your questions about these and other cattle industry issues. Whether it's about something happening in Washington, D.C., or a question about cattle production techniques, or even NCBA policy, we'll tackle them all tonight. So get ready to ask your questions. The number to call is 1-888-824-6688, or you can email your question to C2C@beef.org. And joining us in the studio this evening are J.D. Alexander. He's the immediate past president of NCBA and a cattle feeder in Pilger, Nebraska. All the way from Washington, D.C., Christina Butts serves as the executive director for legislative affairs at the NCBA offices there in Washington. Ryan Rupert is the Senior Director of Beef Quality Assurance and Producer Education right here in Denver for NCBA. And Kate Maher, she's the Director of Member Services for NCBA. I want to welcome you all and thank you all for coming and participating in this live show this evening. And we want to get started right away, folks, with some questions that we got actually earlier today via email. I've got one here that came from Judy in Lamoni, Iowa. She said, when can we expect to see a farm bill out of Washington, D.C.? Christina, that sounds like a good question for you.
Well, I can tell you that that's top of mind for a lot of folks in Washington, not only NCBA. For more than 2 years, we've been working on trying to get a 5-year farm bill completed. 2 weeks ago, the House and Senate conferees came together for their first public meeting to start talking about the differences on the two bills. The House is back in session this week along with the Senate. We know those talks are going to continue. We're hopeful over the next 2 weeks before the Thanksgiving recess we can make some really good progress on that front. And many members on the conference committee are saying that they want a conference report by December the 15th. Now, that will still have to be passed by both the House and the Senate before it can be signed into law. So we still have some time ahead of us, but it looks hopeful that we're going to get a farm bill done before the Christmas break.
Well, that is very, very encouraging news. And another question relative to policy a bit. I don't know who wants to take this. Bill from Wheatland, California wrote us, where does the country of origin labeling law stand now and how has it impacted trade? It's been a huge, huge issue, J.D. You've seen a lot of it in the media lately. Update us on where we stand with COOL.
You know, we could have a show just with that alone,
sure,
as big as this topic is. But I think the bottom line is this, is that, you know, Mexico and Canada have filed that it is unfair and unjust. And the WTO, the World Trade Organization, has sided with them. So as a result, we've had to come up with some answers to justify it and come up with the reasoning that would be satisfactory to both Canada and Mexico. Unfortunately, this time they have not done that. Canada and Mexico have indicated they will have retaliations. The unfortunate thing with that is it may not just be on beef, but other products that our country sells them as well. Our position, the NCBA, has been that we want to be at the world trade and we need to move our beef around the world. Mexico and Canada are two biggest customers for beef. So we're hoping it gets worked out and we'll see, once again, similar to the Farm Bill, how it plays out.
Yeah. It sounds like we have our first caller. We've got Gaylord from South Dakota. Gaylord, thanks for calling tonight. What's your question?
Just kind of wondering what the panel thinks is going to happen with this blizzard in western South Dakota, and if the government's going to step in and help them, or they're thinking about going on vacation again.
A huge question. I mean, I can't think of anything more devastating, first of all, than losing those cattle, but more importantly, not having any kind of support right now, Christina, to know whether these folks qualify and there's money for disaster assistance or not. Tell us the update on that.
Well, that's a great question. When you went back to the 2008 Farm Bill, even though that was authorized for 5 years, the disaster programs were only authorized for 4. So for the last 2 years, our cattle producers that have been devastated by the drought, by the floods, by the blizzard, have not had that assistance or that safety net provided by the federal government. So I'm happy to report that both the Senate and the House versions of the Farm Bill do include disaster assistance. It does make those payments retroactive for the previous 2 years when we didn't have those authorization programs in place. So as long as we get a 5-year farm bill done, it's going to be much beneficial, much more beneficial, obviously, to those producers impacted by these disasters. So there's been a lot of momentum on Capitol Hill because of the blizzard in South Dakota as well as Nebraska, and trying to make sure that those policymakers are talking about these safety net programs that are out there. So we're pushing hard. It's a top priority for NCBA. It's a priority for many members on the conference committee, and we're going to see how this kind of plays out over the next few weeks during the conference negotiations.
Yeah, I was just in FSA last week with the flood issues, and went through the application process, but they said the same thing. Until we have a farm bill, you can apply, but clearly there's no money.
Well, that's also, just to let you know, a lot of the confusion. I think a lot of people thought that the government shutdown impacted these FSA offices, but that wasn't the case.
Right.
The authorization expiring 2 years ago means that those programs are not available for producers, period. So regardless of the shutdown, that wouldn't have made much of a difference for producers impacted by that blizzard.
This has also been a great thing for the cattleman to cattleman. I mean, we've seen cattlemen from all across the nation help out these people that got hit with this, and that is just a good standard of what we see within our industry.
You're right about that. We've got Steve from Kentucky calling. Stephen, go ahead.
Well, I heard you talking about the FFA. I myself am an FFA member. I'm a young cattleman. In a few years, I'm going to be hoping to start up my own operation.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that even though you have cattle prices that are at a record high, you also have land prices and equipment prices and other breeding stock prices that are at a record high. But the main question is, though, that because of these two factors, does the future look bright for cattlemen that are going to be starting up in the next few years?
That's a great question, Stephen, and I've got an awful soft spot in my heart for FFA, so I'm glad to hear that. JD, what's your read on that? That's a great question Stephen poses.
It is a question, and that's reality. I'm very optimistic.
Okay.
I'm a third generation. My son is running our operation today, and is a fourth, and hopefully, one of my grandchildren will eventually take over. And I think that's a good thing about our industry is we never sell out. We're always building it to make it better for the people running it, the environment, and turn it to the next generation. I'm optimistic. We've got a growing population in the world. They need protein. We want to make sure that beef is at the center of the plate for that protein need. And I'm very optimistic. And things change continually. That's why we have to have membership in NCBA to make sure a lot of the outside influences, such as the government influences, don't distract us and get us off target. But I'm very optimistic, and I think there's a good future in the cattle industry.
Yeah, but clearly it is challenging. It's a huge capital-intensive industry. Would you agree?
Well, very much so.
And I think in some cases you see some interesting things going on with folks that may not have sons or daughters wanting to come back, and other young folks being able to link into that as well. So.
There's a lot of creativity. I mean, there's no two operations are the same. That's what I've always said, and people have to work with what they have to make it work.
You bet.
But you have to be optimistic as well, and it'll work out.
I tell people, with as much as I spent on feed the last couple of years in drought, you have to be an optimist, right?
That's true.
Jim from Kansas is calling. Jim, go ahead with your question. Jim, are you there? Well, I'm going to go to Ryan. Ryan, we had an email question earlier. Dean emailed us and asked a specific question about BQA. He said he completed BQA just several years ago. Does he need to be recertified?
Yes, Kevin. Beef Quality Assurance National Standards state that your certification is good for 3 years. And after that period of time, it's time to go get recertified. So we encourage everyone to go to their local state BQA program. Wherever it may be. They're usually somewhere close by, and you get a great opportunity to get recertified. And the reason for this, especially in the past 6 or 7 years, we've seen things in the beef industry change really quick. So much faster than we have in the past. So it's a really good idea to go back and get recertified so you can learn about some of the new best management practices out there that affect safety, quality, animal well-being, and those kinds of things that are really important to not only us producers, but also to the consumer.
Very good. We'll come to our home state of Colorado here. JT's on the line. JT, go ahead with your question. Are you there, JT? All right. Well, I'll move to another question. This one for Kate, I believe. I'm a member of my state association. They talk a lot about NCBA. What does being a member of NCBA do for my state association?
Sure, that's a great question. You know, the state-national partnership that we have with our state affiliates is really critical. It's not only forefront to being able to successfully defend this industry and work together, but it's really at the core of the policy-making process for NCBA. A state membership is great, and by being an NCBA member, you're making your state membership more effective, because the more state members a state has, the better chance of bringing forward policy that your state wants to see instituted nationally. So it really makes your state membership a lot more effective and our partnership stronger.
Very good. Well, in addition to answering your questions this evening, our membership team, they're standing by to provide their personal assistance in helping you become an NCBA member. The number to call for questions about membership or to join tonight is 1-866-USA-BEEF. Let's change the pace for just a minute now and turn to some of the cattle producers we visited with recently. And we asked them, what message would you like to deliver to Congress? Here's what they said.
I would like to see Congress get to work and solve the problems that we need to have solved, a farm bill, and immigration reform, and we are there every day working with them, and we appreciate the opportunity to work with them, but we need action.
Let's get some legislation done, let's get a farm bill passed, and you know, they're there to serve the people, and they need to put their partisan politics behind them and get some things done.
We need some leadership. We need some leadership in Congress, in the Senate. We need somebody to kind of stand up and provide some vision for this country, not one election cycle to the next.
My message is I want less taxes, and if you have to do less for me, do less, but don't keep raising my taxes and trying to protect me from cradle to grave. Let us do some of our own things, and we don't need more government. We need less government and less taxes.
Again, I want to remind you that we're taking your questions live on the air tonight. Give us a call at 1-888-824-6688, or you can email us your questions, as some already have, at C2C@beef.org. Now let's get back to the phone lines. And Jim, you've been patient. You're calling from Kansas with a heifer retention question, I'm told.
Yeah, Kevin. My question is, I was wondering if we're truly seeing an increase in breeding heifer retention, what are the impacts on this on beef supplies and on the fed cattle markets?
Well, I bet if you're buying some feeder cattle, you've studied that just a little bit, J.D. What would you say to Jim?
The first thing to remember is that we're at the lowest numbers we've been in over 60 years, and we've been waiting for retention and to build the herd again. The market is a market. I mean, you're always going to have a cattle market. It's just never know how it operates and fluctuates. We used to have a 10-year cycle. That's really not the case anymore. We need to keep promoting our product. We have to keep producing more cattle. We're hoping it is, retention is taking place. We can build the herd, because we do have a big opportunity out there, and we want to make sure that beef, once again, is the protein of choice. So.
But do you see it impacting the cattle market as you go out to buy some feeder cattle yet, or not yet?
It certainly does. I mean, there's a number of reasons for the impact too. Lower feed costs and less numbers, so the cost is looking as an example of that. Luckily, we've had a change in the fat market as well. We've seen an increase that. It's record prices. Part of it is to maintain it, and hopefully we'll have to do that. And it's all a big cycle, and you just got to be able to keep at it. And I think it'll be a good one in the long run here.
I've heard some reports out of Nebraska with some feeder cattle, 5-weight kind of heifers that come in and start selling by the head just because there's that heifer retention demand, and bring $1,100-$1,200 off the cows. Wyatt from Arkansas is on the line. Wyatt, thanks for your call.
Thank you. I was wondering, what is the current status on death tax and how it will affect future farmers?
You all fought the great fight on that one, Christina. Tell us the achievements that you've made, and give Wyatt a status on the death tax.
So last year we were successful in actually making the death tax permanent, which actually provides a lot of certainty for cattle producers throughout the country. The levels of the death tax that we were able to get permanent is $5 million for individuals, $10 million for married couples. Anything above that would be a 45% tax on top of that, but it does have the stepped up basis, and it's also indexed for inflation, which was a large victory for the cattle industry as well for agriculture to get that permanency in the tax code. Prior to that, we always had these one-year exemptions where we had exemption levels increased for just a short period. And then at the last minute, it was possibly going to revert back to the pre-2000 levels of a $1 million exemption level, regardless married or single, at a 55% tax rate. So even though we continue to talk to members of Congress and NCBA endorses legislation on full repeal of the death tax, it's really just not in the cards right now for this Congress to fully repeal it. So we were very happy about the House and the Senate making it permanent. So that way, hopefully, our family farmers and ranches can continue to plan future years out and then not have to worry about what Congress is going to do at the last minute to make it retroactive or to what they're going to do on the tax moving forward.
Congratulations, the entire team.
The previous questions have been about the future of the industry,
Yeah.
and that probably was the single biggest thing that we could have done.
Yeah.
Literally, what there was going to sunset to would have made it impossible to pass to the next generation.
bet.
So, a big win and a big key, and we'll keep an eye on it.
We'll head to the Sooner State in Oklahoma. Ron, you're on the line.
Well, I was curious about, I'm just starting out. I've got 10 mama cows and a bull and 100 acres. And what is the future of a guy like me that's just trying to cash flow it himself from a day job to leave something that my kids could enjoy when they get older?
It's another great question. The reality is that we know the cattle industry, unlike the hog industry, is made up of a lot of producers across the country that have less than 30 or 40 head. So Ron is not unique in his situation, but I think the question he's asking is, what are the prospects for the future of taking that and building it into an operation that does provide some opportunity for his kids? Ryan, JD, you have thoughts? Yeah, Ryan, go for it.
Ron, I would say that the cattle industry has never been more volatile, and to make mistakes can be really easy.
Yeah.
And that's why we need to make sure that we're continually learning and improving, our financial techniques or our production techniques so that we make less mistakes.
Sure.
My grandpa made a lot more mistakes than my dad did, and I hope my brother and I make a lot less mistakes than they did, because there's not a big margin for error now. So it's really honest to make sure that producer education is something that's top of mind.
Sure.
BQA is a great start, but NCBA has a great producer education program.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State University has one of the premier extension programs out there for beef cattle. There's a lot of great resources out there, and NCBA is a good place to come to find some of those producer education opportunities.
JD, you have any?
There is something as economies of scale, which in agriculture and oil has seen.
Yeah.
But I'll also say that the cattle industry is not cookie cutter.
That's right.
And we've got all sizes. And I can tell you that from the smallest to the largest, they all have problems. Yeah. But they all have opportunity as well. Yeah. So, to give a flat answer, a lot of it is the instances around his operation and each individual. And you just have to do what's right with the environment and the land and everything you've got, and hopefully it'll be successful. But there's no guarantee. It's a tough business.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other opportunity for NCBA is the networking that's created, right? You find new different business models. I know we're involved in a satellite operation and so forth, so there's different things that you can plug into different operations, and in some cases I know people have 25 cows that raise great show steers, and I know people that have 40 or 50 cows have a local branded beef business, and they're finding ways to maximize revenue based on your point that they have different business models, different resources available, and they just get creative, right?
Well, at NCBA, that's what we strive for, is to give information.
Yeah.
We're coming up on a convention that's going to have the Cattlemen's College.
Yeah.
We have programs that are geared just to this type of operation, and we're always striving to learn something new and that's why people need to belong, is to get that information to be successful.
Couldn't say it better myself. And to become a member of NCBA, the nation's largest cattle industry organization, and join us in the effort to expand the global market for U.S. beef, give us a call right now. Our panel of membership experts is standing by to answer your calls throughout tonight's live broadcast. Just dial toll-free 1-866-USA-BEEF. We'll take more of your questions on the issues that impact your bottom line as a cattleman right after this. Stay with us.